The Florida Gators are getting ready to add another commit to the 2026 recruiting class. Here's who you need to know.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free by visiting the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. And look, this obviously isn't every recruit that you should know about, every player visiting, every all that. But there's only so much time in the day, right? And there are some players that I do think are more likely than others to commit. And so we're going to try to prioritize the guys that are, or just guys that are making a decision, in which case Florida is included in that decision. We're talking about them. We're going to start with defensive lineman JaReylan McCoy out of Tupelo, Mississippi, set to commit on July 1st. Or so he says. I do think that he's on commit watch for me. And this is a guy that a few weeks ago, after his official visit, I sent a message to the Subtext program, the insiders, which join subtext.com/LockedOnGators. Links in the description below. Lot of growth there lately, so thank you for that. But with his official visit, I said that, hey, I'm hearing really good things about how Florida feels about JaReylan McCoy and that recruitment and what they've been doing there. And so after his official visit a few weeks ago, he had an official visit set for Texas this coming weekend. And then on, I want to say it was Monday, tweeted, nope, the OV set for Texas is canceled, and now it's going to be an unofficial visit to Florida this weekend. I don't know, just even if this was, flipped, even if this was he had taken an OV to Texas, had a visit scheduled for Florida, and canceled it to go take an unofficial to Texas, I'd be saying, all right, well, he's probably going to Texas. The way that I look at it is if we're talking about a kid that has, he took an unofficial somewhere, he took an unofficial to school A, took unofficial to school A, has another official scheduled with school B, but instead cancels the official with school B to take an unofficial to school A, yeah, I'm going to say that you're probably going to commit, right? Now, whether he actually does that July 1st or whether he actually does that this weekend, it's obviously yet to be seen, but I do think that Florida should feel really good about where they stand with JaReylan McCoy. And I know LSU's always kind of been in the mix, but for me and what we've talked about a lot here is that it always felt like Texas or Florida. And with Texas with the Texas OV getting canceled, feels a lot more like Florida than anything else. Running back Carson Baker, he's someone that, again, similar to JaReylan McCoy with the official visit, have been saying, feels pretty good. Again, I think it's really easy to sell running back at Florida. It just is. I mean, you can look at even just what they've done since Billy got here. There have been multiple running backs now drafted out of the University of Florida, or multiple running backs drafted that were Billy Napier products, I guess we'll say. So you've got that going for you as an easy selling point. You've got the fact that you had Jaden Baugh play significant snaps last year as a true freshman, means you could sell the true freshman playing time possibility. You had Trevor Etienne get significant playing time, significant reps in his first year at Florida, so you could sell true freshman playing time as a thing in running back. You're going to run the ball because it's a Billy Napier-led team. All that. Easy to sell running back. Jabbar Juluke deserves it. Like I'm going to, just for a second, Jabbar Juluke deserves more respect than people give him, right? Again, the guy that had 3 NFL running backs at the same time on Louisiana. Yeah, I have absolute faith in your ability to identify talent and develop them, because that was crazy. At Louisiana, 3 guys Raymond Calais, Trey Ragas, and Elijah Mitchell all at the same time. That's nuts. And they were all playing. It's not like it was like, yeah, well, he was just nope, they were all playing. They all produced. That's crazy production from the running back position. Easy to sell running back at Florida with Jabbar Juluke. Carson Baker, Florida State, he had an OV to Florida State this past weekend, tweeted about it a lot, seemed like he had a great time. I still think he's trending Florida. Supposed to have an official visit with Texas A&M and or South Carolina. So decision could be coming a bit later in June, maybe. Not saying that he has a date set. That's just me trying to read the tea leaves like I always do here. But there's a lot of noise with Florida, and from who I've spoken to, a lot of people feel good there. Offensive tackle Javari Lucas is committing this coming Monday. Had his cousin Kelvin Taylor, Florida Gators running back Kelvin Taylor, in Gainesville with him on his official visit. That's been part of the recruitment process there, publicly part of the recruitment process there. So I will say I'm also expecting him to be a Gator at this point. He took a visit with West Virginia this past weekend. Was supposed to have a visit with South Florida, USF, on June 20th weekend, but he's committing before that. And so I feel like when that happens, it's like, all right, well, he's probably not going there. Unless he's told he's not a take, which I don't think is the case. But if it is the case at this point, we'll see. Because, the O-line board is kind of falling for Florida earlier than it's ever really fallen before, which is a good thing at this point. But we'll see how they feel about, bringing in certain guys. Defensive lineman, Preston Carr, IMG defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman from Long Island that was on campus this past weekend. And he is set to commit on June 30th. And the tough part about Preston Carey's recruitment is that kind of no one knows what the hell is going on. That's pretty much all you could say, is that everybody is like, yeah, we're not really hearing much. It's very close to the chest here about, who's leading at this certain point. Did this school knock it out of the park with the OV? Like, all that stuff has been relatively quiet on Preston Carey's side of recruitment. So this is just one of those recruits where I think there's a lot of Florida Gators fans who go, oh, it's quiet, so he's not going to be a Gator. And maybe, but I honestly just think it's tough to definitively say anything about his recruitment other than, well, he's supposed to commit June 30th. Everything else is kind of just hypotheticals or projections. But as far as anything definitive, no one really has anything for Preston Carey's recruitment right now. I will say this. I will make a very simple trade offer to Preston Carey. I put it on Twitter. I will make the very public trade offer, and I will stick to it. If Preston Carey commits to Florida, I won't make fun of Long Island for a while. I don't know how long that while is, but if he commits to Florida, I won't make fun of Long Island for a while. And I make fun of Long Island a lot. That's all I'll say. So that's my case. There we go. I'll stick to it. If he sticks to his end, I'll stick to my end. It's very simple. But could the Florida Gators flip back a commit that flipped from them this coming weekend? There's nothing quite like the NBA playoffs right now, right? The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds, the players losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere that you want to experience live, right? This year's matchups already delivering through 3 games. Got at least 2 more coming up, right? At least 2 more. And if you want in, Game Time makes it easy and fast to get tickets, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually go down the closer that you get to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. It's not just athletic events, by the way. I've gone to, I think last year it was 5 concerts. I've got a comedy show in a couple weeks I'm going to on Game Time. Like, we're doing it all. Went to 1 NBA game this season. College football, do it all. on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And like I mentioned, Florida has the possibility or the potential to flip a player that has already flipped from them. Things get weird sometimes in recruiting, right? And Izayia Williams is a linebacker that's on campus this weekend. And we are going to talk about this for a couple minutes because, first off, Izayia Williams is on permanent flip watch, right? He could flip to Florida this weekend. Hell, he could flip to Florida as I'm recording this. And I'm still going to go, all right, we'll wait till signing day. We'll see how it goes. Izayia Williams is supposed to be on campus this weekend. He has reportedly confirmed that, yep, still happening this weekend, even after his flip to Ole Miss about a month or so ago. But he's on his fifth commitment. Five. And Florida is one of those former commitments. It is number 4. And Izayia Williams is an interesting recruit to talk about because there are a lot of people in – I want to say – I was going to say the Florida Gators fan base, but I feel like really just in sports in general, not even necessarily just like even if you could ask a fan who doesn't care about college sports and is strictly pro, and you tell them the story about, well, you know, you're recruiting this kid, he committed to you, he flipped somewhere else. That was his 5th school that he went to. Most people have, you know, we'll say 1 to 2, maybe 3, and even that seems a bit odd now. And then we've got this one at 5, and still, you know, 5 more months to go, 6 more months to go, and all that. I think there are a lot of fans who feel some type of way about that, right? Who see that and say, I don't want that kind of player. I don't want to do this, even though you don't really know the reasoning behind why he flipped. Again, the thing I've always tried to say with recruitments like Izayia Williams and like other players who have flipped multiple times is that so many of us, myself included, I'm not going to pretend that I was this big high school football player. I wasn't. No one was recruiting me to go play anywhere. So many people that are watching this, talking about these recruitments, will never have to make a decision where genuinely millions of people care about it. I'm not saying just millions in Florida's fan base, but I'm saying that, you know, Izayia Williams has committed to 5 schools now. 2 of them are SEC programs. 2 of them were ACC. 3 of them were ACC programs. He's been to Power 4 programs, right? And so you figure that enough adds up to have it where, you know, genuinely millions. And there's people who it's like, yeah, these are my final 5. And there's genuinely millions of people that care about those teams. And so they care about that recruiting. And many of us will never make a decision with that kind of external pressure where, you know, a lot of people will make the decision of where to go to college. I had to make that decision, and I didn't have a ceremony. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a thing anybody really cared about outside of my family. And I think that that's a thing where these are still kids making a decision with that kind of pressure. And that's a lot. So I try to give these kids some grace. I understand that there are people who feel differently. That's fine. You're entitled to feel differently. You're entitled to feel that way. I'm just saying how I feel. And when it comes to a recruit like that, it's honestly not even a matter of whether or not I think Florida should still recruit someone. Just to not talk about Izayia, Darius Heze was someone that a few years back in the 23 class was a linebacker committed to Florida. You know, the whole 100% shut down, no more visits, and then cancels a Florida visit to go to Miami. And it was a whole thing. And I was just like, I would stop recruiting him here. And there are plenty of recruits before where I've been like, hey, I wouldn't recruit him. Things I've heard on the film, I don't like it as much, so I wouldn't recruit him, but it's not up to me. So for all of the people going, oh, why are we recruiting Izayia Williams? They like him. That's all I can say, right? Florida is still recruiting him. We've seen Florida stop recruiting guys before. Florida is still recruiting Izayia Williams. Florida is still bringing him in for an official visit. So they still care, meaning we're still going to talk about it. Izayia Williams is someone that I'm going to always have on permanent flip watch. Again, that's just what I've said. It's not even a knock on him like that. It's just, it is what it is. He's someone who seems to flip depending on recency bias or whatever it may be. That's not up to me. That's just, I just watch it and I give my opinion. But Izayia Williams is supposed to be on campus this weekend, and whatever happens, happens, right? Not saying that I think it's going to happen, but I didn't think Ole Miss would happen. So tight end Heze Kent is the next player that we're going to talk about, and I've been pretty open that I think Florida's leading for Heze Kent. Again, one that's not super public in terms of how he's genuinely feeling, but one thing that I've always said is when you go back and look at specifically Florida Gators tight end coach / OC, Russ Callaway, when you look at his social media posts and you look at Heze Kent's social media posts, they have a lot of posts with each other. Russ Callaway has more posts with Heze Kent than I think any other tight end in this class. Heze Kent has more posts with Russ Callaway than I think any other coach he's got recruiting him. It's very clear that there's a lot of love between those two, right? And it's a, love who loves you kind of thing with this recruiting process. And so for me, that's one of the reasons that I've always said, again, there's not a ton of public information that comes out here, but based on that, which again, reading the tea leaves, something we try to do here, I have to feel like Florida's in a pretty good spot, right? He's committing a month from today, and it looks like it's coming down to Florida, Miami, Georgia Tech, Texas, the official visit spots. Always a threat, Texas is. But again, I still feel like Florida has put themselves in a good spot here. I feel like Florida's prioritized Heze Kent for a pretty long while now. And I think that means a lot, right? Finding the people that believe in you because they believe in you, not finding the people that believe in you because other schools started to believe in you. Like it's different, and that's something that I will commend Billy and this coaching staff on, is that they have always just gone after their guys, and even if it's 3 stars, they're going after them. And it could be, May, June, and they're adding a 3-star, and the fan base is going to go 3-star, that's crazy, and rival fan bases are going to go 3-star clown show. And then when the rankings get adjusted and the offer sheets are updated, and you find out, oh, this might have been a 3-star in May, but now he's a mid-high 4-star with Power 4 programs heavily recruiting him throughout, SEC programs heavily recruiting him throughout. And you'll see kids go, Florida was there first. Florida was the first SEC offer I had. Florida was the first Power 4 offer I had. You'll see that. And it'll happen. And they absolutely deserve their credit for that identification process and how they handle it. It's impressive, right? And again, I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumping guy. I'm just saying that truly, I think they're fantastic evaluators and roster builders. It's just the on-field stuff's got to get sorted out, buddy. Corner CJ Hester is set to commit on July 1st. Still has Georgia, Miami, and Iowa on the schedule, but he publicly named Florida as his top choice. And so you got to feel at least pretty good about where they stand there. If he's truly sticking to the July 1st commitment date, you got to withstand 3 OVs and that, or sorry, I believe it's 2 OVs and 1 unofficial. But you got to withstand those 3 visits. Not an easy thing to do. Defensive lineman Vodney Cleveland, battle of the Southeast. No other way. I mean, it's Auburn, it's Florida, it's Georgia, it's Texas, it's Miami. I guess Texas isn't so much the Southeast, but it's the battle of the Southeast plus Texas, which is still the South. And publicly, I think there's a lot of, I think most people would probably say it's either Florida or Texas, right? But I have this thing where I refuse to rule out Kirby Smart and Georgia for a defensive lineman. I don't care about the amount of times I've heard like, yeah, Georgia's, Georgia not feeling too great about it. And then they end up, doing whatever voodoo magic they do that they end up getting a kid. I'm never going to count out Georgia. But I will say that the schools he seems to be prioritizing in Florida, Texas, and Georgia are 3 schools that have produced a ton of defensive line talent specifically, and Florida is going to continue doing that. And I would imagine both Georgia and Texas are also going to continue doing that. He is supposed to take an official visit to Texas this weekend, which, again, the OVs can move mountains with a lot of these recruits. And so Florida, again, you got to withstand these other visits in order to stay at the top for Rodney Cleveland, or stay, I'll say, near the top for Rodney Cleveland. There are 4 more recruits that we're going to talk about today on Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And like I said, we got 4 more recruits to talk about today. First off is corner Chanty Kennan. One of those early July commit dates set. I think he's July, I want to say 5th or 6th. But Chanty Kennan in that bunch that's very busy for the beginning of July. A top 6 of Florida in alphabetical order. I'm not saying numerical, just alphabetical order. Florida, Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Miami, and Oregon. Gators had him in for an OV a few weeks ago. He was on campus earlier this week. So I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, that he was on campus for an official visit. And then on Tuesday, he came back to campus for another unofficial visit. And it's clear that Florida, trying to make things happen here. Florida's been pushing very hard. He is a priority target in the secondary. He's said that he favors the in-state schools. So you got to figure Florida, Florida State, Miami are there. LSU, always been a good spot to get DBs, regardless of how deserving they are of that reputation presently. Georgia, again, always been a good spot to get DBs, although I will say I don't think that their DBs have been super successful in the NFL lately. Maybe a better product, just having good athletes on the back end and elite defensive linemen throughout. Maybe Oregon, I don't know. If you say that you're going to prioritize in-state schools, or that you're feeling in-state schools more, hard to sell me on, I'm going to go to the Pacific Northwest. That's just a tough sell there at that point. So I really think it's more of a top 5 than anything else. I think it's a top 4 more than anything else, really. But for now, let's say he favors the in-state schools, and hopefully we'll see some traction there. Next up is wide receiver Samorian Wingo, who's on campus this past weekend. And so far, it's been mostly Florida and Miami. He's still supposed to have an official visit with South Carolina. And at the time of recording this, reportedly an Alabama one is supposed to happen at some point, but we'll see if it really does. But I do know that Florida made an impression, I'll say, during his official visit. All we know about when he's committing really is that it's supposed to be this summer. I would imagine, mid-late July, but who knows with how classes can fill out over the next month. You could see kids go, all right, well, I don't want to miss out on this class, and they're adding a bunch of kids, so I'm going to jump into a class, which happens quite a bit. So we'll see what really happens with it. Again, not an official commitment date set, so probably more flexible than a lot of people, but Samorian Wingo, Florida, Miami are the priority, or I would say are the top of the list right now. And Florida feels pretty good about the momentum that they've been gaining with, honestly, a lot of these kids on the trail that we're talking about. Another wide receiver, Marquez Daniel, is going to be on campus in Gainesville this weekend. Seems like it's Florida or Auburn, Alabama native, but from what I've heard, Florida feels pretty good, which 6'5" is a big dude. Like 6'5" is a big dude at receiver. And I would love it. Again, like I like that Florida is just embracing these bigger bodies more. I feel like Billy Napier in his first couple of years didn't really embrace the 6'4" plus guys so much, or even 6'3" plus guys so much. And so adding, Dallas Wilson, Moise Tonkara, Marquez Daniel, going into the portal and trying to add guys throughout and going into, again, high school recruiting and trying to add guys throughout with more size. They're kind of embracing that. And I think that there is a lot of value in that kind of receiver, especially when you have a quarterback that wants to be aggressive throwing the ball downfield and wants to throw the ball deep down the sideline and wants to give you a jump ball opportunity. And Florida's been recruiting quarterbacks that want to do that. So you've got to get them the receivers to do that. And Marquez Daniel is one of those. And then the last player is offensive lineman Blaise Thomasy, high school offensive tackle that Florida would plan on moving to the interior of the offensive line should they choose to add him. But from what we've heard, it's not necessarily been secretive at all. From what we've heard, if Florida wants Blaise Thomasy, then they feel really good about getting him. But the thing is, does Florida want him? Especially if, you get a Jabbar Juluke and you get, another one or two offensive linemen. And it's like, well, now we got bodies. Do we want to add an interior offensive lineman? Again, that's more of a developmental piece. The answer should be yes, by the way. You need more bodies on the O-line. You can supplement other spots elsewhere, but you need more bodies on the offensive line. And so I would take him right now. I would take him right now. But it seems to be right now more so about does Florida want to take him and less about can Florida get him. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, both in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk about the Florida Gators' upcoming official visit weekend. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work for New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.